Well, I just took 8 days off for Janet's big birthday, and oh shit, I've got no motivation. I just can't be bothered. It's funny how you have a bit of a holiday and you think it's going to rejuvenate you. You actually come back less enthused than when you left. I'd pretty much done about 8 months solid without a break, pretty much, just to get to where I'm at right now. And yeah, we just decided to nick off to New Zealand, and because it was an amazing trip. But when you come back, it's like, how do you get started? I just got to think in, oh God, I just can't be bothered. Anyway, I'll get started. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'll get in and start doing something, and that's what it's all about, a bit of momentum. You know, if you sit down for a minute, you're going to sit for hours. If you get moving, you'll get moving for days. So. Okay, so I've got to actually add some foam to the base of this window insert so that I can level this up and make it nice and solid all the way through. The problem is I've got to now get rid of these bolts. Now these bolts are holding the insert onto the window, but now that they're glassed in place, I don't have to worry about that. So what I'll do is I'll get the flat disc grinder and just grind the top off the bolt so that I can get down to the actual bolt itself, undo the nut from the other side, and then bang it through, fill it with plasticine, and then I can glass over the whole thing, and that'll give me my completed window frame. I don't want to start gluing foam over the top of these bolts now, because if I do that, I'm going to end up encapsulating them, and then I won't be able to find them when it comes time to remove the window insert, and they've got to come off for demoulding. Alright, so the journey under the mould again. And you can see all my supports have actually stayed in place, but they're not necessary anymore. I could probably remove those and allow it to spring a little bit, and certainly allow this deck to start to move and perhaps demold. But I think I might wait until the last laminates are on before I remove that, and then I can start walking around on it, and that'll certainly aid in release. But for now, I'm going to undo these big side ones. I've got to get under here. Oh! Bit of glass on the back. Get up to these guys here. Which is this one here. Should have brought the bloody hammer with me. What an idiot. I wonder I might just undo a few because there's no need for them anymore. They're only there for the initial couple of layers, and there's already 6 layers around those window mullions. All these bolts through, so I'll pull them out, and these windows are now free to release. Hopefully we can get the buckers out. That's a bit of good planning. And sorry, it's been climbing around underneath the mould. My back's killing me. Good thing is now, the only thing holding these in now is the glass rather than the bolt. And I'll do the bottom ones, or the main cockpit saloon ones. I've got a bit of work to do around there. A little bit of reinforcing, a little bit of foam. Okay, so the last piece of these window inserts, and this is just going to be filled with a cotton flock filler, just to give me the gap filling with a little bit of strength, and then essentially I'm going to be able to laminate from the gunnel all the way down, right down to these window inserts, all in one hit. And that's been really critical, because a lot of fiddling work to get this. Now I can decide the window shapes, because the original ones that I have on the template really aren't ideal. They tend to cross bulkheads, and I want to make sure that I have windows inside each bulkhead, not with half a bulkhead through one of the windows. So I'll probably do those once I ascertain where the bulkheads fit on the whole job. But I'm going to put this piece back in place. Right, so this is the last one, and it's been a full day job doing these windows, so it's amazing how you lose a day just doing something that you think is going to take a few hours. It's a whole day's work to get the prep right, to undo all the bolts, to make sure we get everything consistent and perfect. And now this is in place. That's perfect. Now I can aim for one level all the way through, and then I can paint it, fair it, do whatever I like with it, to be honest. First day back from holidays, I've got all the windows in and all the inserts filled with foam. Now you'll notice this curve here, it's actually been stripped with foam. Now that is multiple pieces of foam to get that shape there. This is all going to get nice and sanded back tomorrow, and hopefully uniform, and then I'll be able to just laminate in one piece. But God almighty, that's been a big job, but I'm pretty happy with the result there. I'm going to end up with a very, very nice finish inside the boat, and that's been pretty critical. What I'm trying to do here is get a good surface here rather than have to work on the surface when the bastard's upside down and inside out. It's better off while it's upside down and inside out in the mould than it is upside down and inside out inside the boat itself, when I'm trying to sand it and get it all level. But yeah, pretty happy with that. And then we'll have a look down the other side. It's done as well. It's taken me pretty much all day to get these window sections done, and they're going to look fantastic. Basically, I will have to core the foam around the rims of the cutouts when I actually come to cut it out. But at the moment, that's saved me probably a ton of work at the other end, and well worth doing while I've got access to it and it's upright. See you, buddy.
I've had enough.
Knock off time.
I've worked too hard today, mate.
What'd you do today?
Nothing.
Well, I've worked my ass off first day back from holidays. I'm knackered.
Well, you know, you can't have a holiday every day, mate. You've got to do some work.
As I mentioned earlier, it's all about momentum. I woke up first thing the next morning and got straight into the cockpit cabin wall. Now, this essentially has a bifold door in it and two windows, and I chose to use the 25mm crosscut foam here as well. I had just enough to do this particular work here. Luckily I was able to acquire that from Paul at a great price. Now the preparation for this required a ton of sanding, and there was a couple of areas once again where I had to fill in a couple of little voids because I'd been a bit hasty in my laminating, probably late in the afternoon when the light wasn't that great. You'll notice as we go through this video too, there's quite a lot of darkness here. We are in the middle of winter, so I did actually use a couple of very strong work lights in here overnight, and that tended to not be great for working because it was throwing shadows a lot of the time, and sometimes you just don't quite pick up on errors when there's shadows around. But getting this stuff glued on was a bit of an effort. It certainly didn't take too long, but vertically using the roller in that vertical plane is one of the hardest things you'll do. You've got to push inwards, upwards, and apply a lot of weight towards the actual roller to make sure that it's effective. It did actually affect my back and my knees, particularly after our big walking trips in New Zealand. But you know, got the job done, and basically you'll notice the marks on this foam. It does need a good sand to clean it up, and that was done at a later date as well.
So I'm out of sea light, but I have got one drum left from about a year ago, and I'm going to risk it. Look, it's just $400 a tin, and I'm going to risk it, and that's wholesale. So imagine what that'd cost retail, probably about 600 or 700 Australian. So ridiculously expensive stuff. I'm going to mix it up with a drill and see if I can rejuvenate it. If not, I better make an order today because I am out of foam bedding compound, and I've still got this bit here to do. Those two cockpit mouldings and that whole back floor, so I'm going to need at least probably 2 more drums. Maybe I might get away with 1. I'll just see how I go. 1 might be just enough, but it's not likely because I've still got to do the floor underneath here, so I'm definitely going to need another couple of drums, and then I'll need some more inside the boat as I do more and more foam coring. The A to Z of the Great Rock Islands with Eddie G. So I'm wading through some of my comments, and one of them is about the hatch. Well, I'm not sure who it was, but very rightly so. He made a suggestion that I put some stuff underneath it to stop me falling through. And I haven't had a near accident with it, but it's going to happen at some point. You know, I'm up here in the dark a lot of time at night. I'm working late now. I turn the lights off, and you got to sort of navigate your way out of the sight in the dark. Those hatches there, I have actually made plywood blanks to just fit in on the top of them, and that actually has been a really clever move, because a couple of the times I'm walking around with the weights, I'll sort of walk around the top of the bridge deck here, or the foredeck, and yeah, I'll have to navigate across those holes, and it's not a good scene. So I have these plywood blanks, and thanks for making the comment, mate. I really appreciate it. It's yeah, my safety is your concern, because you want to see the end of this frickin' boat, and so do I. So I'm going to whack that in there. Job done. That simple. I can now stand on my hatch. And I've done the other side as well, just to make you all feel a little bit better for me. But yeah, so that's quite an easy fix for a big potential problem. So easy done.
Now, the preparation of this foam core that is actually installed on this deck is always a longer process than just simply gluing it down and glassing over the top. The key is to get a really nice bevel on this stuff. Now, there's a number of different ways you can actually finish foam core, and I always choose this beveled approach, because what it does, it allows me to seal the foam with resin. The pores in the end of this foam need to be sealed. You can't just leave them exposed to water and other contaminants. It's very important that it actually gets sealed, and this way I'm actually tying the top laminate over the top of the foam back down into the actual substrate underneath. Very, very important, and that actually in turn seals the foam and creates a good structural joint. Now, there's a number of ways you can actually finish this foam off. I could either, if I had a 90-degree there, I can actually core that foam and fill that with a filled or milled fiber rich resin. I could do other ways by wrapping it, but essentially I find that this is probably the best method. It does create an incredibly strong joint around that bevel. Now it's time to move on to the cockpit floor, and I was able to use a thinner H80 foam here for this particular section. The advantage of the thinner foam is that obviously it's quicker to put down, and you can simply cut it in place with a Stanley knife. Now, the reason why I can afford to use a thinner foam here is because there's going to be multiple stringers running underneath this floor here, where I can run my throttle cables, power, certainly some plumbing, and definitely fuel and steering mechanisms are going to be underneath this floor as well. This floor sits around 60 millimeters above the actual bridge deck floor, so there's plenty of room underneath, and I'll have some structures under here similar to floor bearers on underneath any given floor. Now, this foam is quite easy to cut, simply a Stanley knife, and you can just snap off the part you don't need, and it was a pretty quick process to get it actually cut. Installing it, however, was another story. It takes a lot of the sea light to put it actually down, but once it was done, it was really pleasing to get this part done, and then all I had to do was then bevel the edge of it with an orbital sander. Unlike the other one, because it was so thin, I was able to simply just take the edge off it, and I was able to laminate it, which I'll be doing hopefully in the next couple of weeks for you guys. The thing with these videos is there's so much content that I film. I can go home with anything up to 100 gig of photographs and videos every night. Getting it to make sense in the context of which it is often is my biggest challenge. In fact, I find it a little bit harder than the boat building occasionally, and certainly balancing it with time-lapse conversation, voiceover, and good quality detail is one of the hardest parts of making these videos. So I really appreciate you guys watching it, and I appreciate the comments if you don't like the music or you don't like me talking too much, but I do try to give a good balance in what I'm presenting, and hopefully you're finding that of good value.
Righto, so the specifications for this was to have 20mm foam on it, and I've gone for 25. And what I'm going to end up with is a really nice, like visible mullion here rather than a flush one. I think that's going to look quite nice all the way around with the 4 or 5 mullions I've got to do. I'll make them look quite pronounced. But it's really, this is the end of the foaming process, and I'm pretty happy to get this bit done, John.
You're doing well, son. You're doing well.
Johnny's coming over every afternoon, everyone, and giving me a bit.
Make sure he's working and not sitting around doing nothing.
He's in his motorbiking gear. He's off having gallivanting around the bloody countryside, and I'm working my ring off.
You got to have fun, mate.
Everyone makes a comment about you, John. They think you're here working every day. You do fuck
all. Oh, I hope not.
He does fuck all over and gives me advice. Good advice, though, John.
Oh, look, you know, whatever I tell you, mate, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, we know that. That's what we love about it. Someone actually made a comment a couple of weeks ago that said you should listen to John. He only says what he needs to say. You obviously don't know John very well.
F all.
Alright, so I'll get these bits in.
It's like I say to people, I don't need Google.
No.
And they go, why is that? I said, because my wife knows everything.
That's absolutely gold.
Well, I don't.
She does. Sue does know everything.
She does, yep.
Yeah, she is definitely. What do you call your wife, John? What do you call her?
I call her the warden.
The warden, yeah. Because it's a bit of a... It's like a prison over there. I don't think John's struggling though.
No, she's all right.
She is. Xena.
She puts up with me.
Alright, so this is actually got a slight wedge shape. Oh, look at that. Get this down, I'll get the
You've done well.
Vibrating roller on it as per the Vinicell's instructions. So this is a cross-cut foam. This isn't grid score, it's what they call cross-cut. And it's got cuts on both sides. And it's very easy to break. You can just snap off a piece that you need. You don't have to really cut it that much as long as it's a straight line. But this stuff ensures that I'm getting good flex and curve, because this is slightly curved, isn't it, mate?
It's not a flat surface, is it? No.
None of it's flat. Old fucking boats.
Nothing's flat on a boat, is there?
Flat surface.
No.
I'll get that vibrating roll.
Everything's bent like the person building it.
Yeah, like the guy.
Yeah.
Trying to put it together.
You got to be a little bit mad to build one of these, I think.
That's it. I'll be happy when I get this bit down, because then I can start to laminate after I get all these window bits.
What about where you're standing? Aren't you going to...
Oh, I'm going to do that at the end. I think I'll laminate everything first.
Gotcha.
I'll do this last bit.
Gotcha.
Just as a bit of a joyous moment at the end.
Yeah, well, it's...
The swan song.
Yep.
I'm going to worry about reinforcement for winches and things later on. Once I get it in there, I'll just do that upside down. I could put it all in now, start to reinforce where my winches are going to go and all my deck.
Oh, I see, yes.
I think I'll be doing that later on. I'm running out of time, the deadline.
There's no time, mate. Where do you get this running out of time business?
There's a deadline, there's always a deadline. Because Janet's put the deadline on me, and
you know, everyone's anxious to have the boat done, but it gets finished when it gets finished.
Everyone's anxious except me.
Get real about it, son.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny, everyone's anxious about it.
You're not building a house.
There's this in there. Messy shit. I've gone through about 18 boxes of gloves here. Yeah, see, that's curved there.
Maybe you should have used a full piece to get the curve.
No. Oh, it doesn't really matter. I think it's probably better in pieces, to be honest. So this will all be filleted and glassed back to those windows, unlike the little windows. And I'll get the roller on this in a minute. I've completed the foam core in the window mullions here. Now these are the main pillars that support the cabin roof or the saloon roof, and essentially they're a particularly strong layout. They are 2 layers of 300 CSM, 2 layers of 1215 quadraxial, another layer of 300 CSM 25mm foam. Now the actual engineer called for 20mm foam, and I've chosen a thicker foam to get myself what looks like a pillar. I quite like the idea of that raised pillar around the cabin. I could have gone for a smooth line pretty much all the way around, but I quite like the idea of having a pronounced pillar in between the windows. It sort of makes it feel a little bit more structural. It's a bit of a design thing. As a result, I need to be careful how I finish this foam and then ultimately laminate it so that I'm not ending up with too much bulk to fill it before I fair and paint it. So what I have to do down in here along this gap in between the window insert and the foam core is I need to fill it with a substantial structural filler, and what I'm going to use is resin and cotton flock mixed into it, which actually gives me a very firm bodied glue thickener, but it also gives me a little bit of structure as well. It's not just a resin that's pumped in there to fill the void, and it's quite a void. It's around about 1 centimetre wide, but what it'll allow me to do is to actually get a nice radius, and I'm going to peel ply it straight away because I'm not going to get to laminating it any time in the next couple of days, so better off to peel ply it, and then I know that it's at least sort of got all that keyed surface for future lamination. So very important. So I'm going to do all these window mullions. There's 5 main mullions, and then there's a small one at the back side of the cabin which intersects into the back of the cabin, and ultimately that is going to help me get that desired effect. Okay, it's a couple of hours later. That is rock solid, and if you have a look here, that's now given me a nice little radius with which to sand this foam down and achieve a shape. I'm going to leave that and spend a bit of time on this, because I think a day well spent here will save me oodles of time in the fairing and painting process. So that's pretty much all done. I've got a tiny little patch over here at the back where it intersects with the cabin, but I've still got another piece of foam to integrate into the back here. So yeah, pretty much all complete, and certainly ready for the next stage, which is laminating them down. I'm going to pretty much get into that over the next couple of days. First things first, however, is to get this ready for laminating. I intend to laminate this entire section today and tomorrow, or actually tomorrow. I'm not going to get it done today. I'm just going to start sanding, and I've burned through a couple of sanders. In fact, my Festool pad has carked it, so I've ordered another one on eBay. The foam seems to generate a lot of heat as you're sanding, and it damages the Velcro pads. In fact, it melts the Velcro. So there's an attrition of tools and hardware on this project, and certainly I'm going through a shitload of it at the moment. But this afternoon, I'm going to basically sand this entire section from that lounge suite area there all the way down to the edge of the windows here, and around onto the companionway around the side, because it's been a high traffic area. There's a lot of dust and impurity there, and I intend to get rid of all of that stuff before I start to laminate. There's no point in laminating onto a substrate that has a lot of impurities and dust and dirt that I've carried in from outside, as well as because I bought all this stuff second hand, it had already had some impurities on it. So important thing with cores is to not ever apply solvents or cleaning agents onto them. If they look a bit dirty, the best thing you can do is sand them. Just sand them back a little bit and then use a vacuum and pick it up. The last thing you want to do is damage the structure of a closed cell foam by using a thinner or an acetone or methylated spirits or denatured alcohol or anything like that. You're better off just to sand it, pick it up with a vacuum, and then do your laminating. That's sort of a really good policy, because the last thing you need is an impurity there or a collapsed structure that's then not going to bond to the laminating resin that you're using. Now, once again, this is all polyester, so polyester sticks pretty much to everything, but the grid score certainly helps. Having that sort of cross-cut foam that I have here, you get those the resin bonding into the actual structure of the foam and creating a really good matrix, and certainly getting that rigidity. So yeah, I'm pretty much finished. Apart from the cockpit floor that I'm standing on, I'm going to do that last. I'll just do that all in 1 or 2 days. I'll laminate it, foam core it, finish it, and then I'll start working around the back, just like when I did the gel coating. I'll basically work in sections so that I don't close myself in, leaving where I'm standing here for last. So let's get into it. A bit of sanding. I've got a grubby afternoon on the sander ahead of me. I've got Janet's little sander there. I bought the one from home that I bought Janet for a present to do all the handrails on her house, and she's not happy about me using a brand new sander for the boat, but I'm waiting on the parts. I've got to get going with the job.